How do you build a high-performing culture? This is Culture Architects. Candid conversations with extraordinary leaders sharing their biggest successes, failures, and lessons learned on their culture journeys. Here's David J. Friedman.
Welcome back to my conversation with Ed DeAngelis, the founder and CEO of EDA Contractors. Last time, Ed walked us through the story behind the entrepreneurial spirit, and he talked about his evolution from knowing nothing about culture at all to leading a multi-awarded top workplace. In today's episode, we're going to get into the specific things that made it possible for EDA Contractors to become this top workplace, from making sure to focus on psychological safety and human connections to recruiting for a cultural fit. Well, think about, we'll go back to the Eagles for a moment.
Sure.
And so as Ed and I are recording this, it's a couple months after the Eagles Super Bowl victory, which we were so pleased with. But think about how much the Eagles talk about culture, and think about Nick Sirianni and talking about connection, and how when people feel connected on the team, they're going to go to bat for each other in a stronger way. They don't want to let their teammates down. And if they don't have that connection, that doesn't happen. And you read about and hear about the things that the Eagles do to go bowling together or hang out together. Like, those things create connection, and connection translates into people working harder for each other.
It's not even just, you're spot on. It creates the psychological safety. You can't have psychological safety with people or your staff if you're not able to experiencing them in all kinds of different venues and spaces. Meaning, you work with them, sometimes it can get hard. Sometimes it's tough. You can go bowling with them. You can go, to a party with them. You can do different things. You get to talk to them like human beings, where you connect through their humanity. And then that is the connection. You try to create these more intimate connections, because the transactional connections are tough. Look, everybody at EDA or at most businesses, they are hired for a job and they have a pay scale that they are to do. That is the minimum requirement, though. That's the minimum. And we have to get away from the minimum requirement being enough as business owners and accept the fact that it's more and more than that. And you can expect more from your people. And some people don't want to give it. But if you offer it, I'm telling you that most people, the people that you want, will want to take a piece of that.
Yeah, there's a way that I don't remember what book it was I read many, many years ago, but it talked specifically about what's often referred to as discretionary effort. The difference between the minimum that you're describing, and there's a gap there between if you were to hire me in your company, there's the minimum that you're describing, then okay, this is what's necessary to do the job. But inside of each of those people, there's this gap, this discretionary effort that's available for them to do something above and beyond that, to blow people away, to be amazing, to be incredible at their job. And how do you access that? And what causes most people in a company to do an amazing job instead of the minimum job? Well, it's how they feel about where they are. If they feel connected, they feel rewarded, they feel like it's meaningful, they feel like they're appreciated, they feel engaged in what they're doing, they're just logically more likely to put out more effort. Any of us would be that way.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think when you referred to the Eagles, look, there's a talent level at the top level that evens out. But the differentiator is how they connect with each other and how they deal with adversity. What solutions, innovations do they come up with? Not every innovation comes from the coaches, it comes from the players. And businesses are the same way. I'm one person. Anything that has happened really great over the years has really been the people able to come up with ideas. And the more safe they feel, where they feel like they can have their opinions heard because they understand where your culture is and it's not penal for making mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
That's a critical aspect of creating something. If you're not building trust with people, how do you make them feel safe? And number one, their psychological safety isn't because you say they're psychologically safe. It's because they feel psychologically safe. And it's hard because in every business, just like in the NFL, the Eagles, you're going to have to cut people. And it's not good and you don't like it. But at the end of the day, sometimes that has to happen. Well, that erodes some psychological safety with people. So you just got to it's a constant work. That's why this is never ending. This culture and creating this is never ending. And that's the part that I love about it is the fact that it's just always evolving like an organism that you constantly got to be working on. So if you can't go, I'm finished.
Absolutely.
Humans, we're not finished. And everybody comes in with, and we love a diverse group. The more diverse, the better. We want our culture to be very accepting of all types of groups of people to be able to really make it richer as we move forward.
Yeah. So you talked at the beginning, Ed, about that, you had this sense that if I built the kind of culture that I wanted, you wanted to, as I heard you wanted to build that great culture largely just because it was more meaningful for you than just doing the transactional stuff. And yet at the same time, you had a belief, and I'm sure your experience has proven it to be the case, that it actually leads to better business outcomes. And so I'm curious, what are some of the metrics you look at that tell you, beyond just your own instincts about it, that, you know what, this actually translates to better business performance? What are some of the things you look at as the return on investment for that?
Sure. Yeah, and that's the other, I'm glad you spoke to that. Look, this is an investment. So let me be clear. We've spent a tremendous amount of time and money building this culture. This did not just happen. Between our own time, between consultants' time, between the amount of time and money and energy we spend to put this together, we're spending money to do that. So when it comes to the ROI, some of the metrics that we use, the first one is, for us, is retention. We have a high level of retention. I mean, to way above the industry standard. Recruitment. We really, really we get a lot of the best people in this organization came from word of mouth. Someone said, you should come work here. And that there's nothing bigger compliment to your organization is when people inside your organization are so happy that they are telling other people in any organization, like if they're going to a picnic at a family thing and they say, where do you work? They say, I work at this company, EDA, and I love it. Oh my God, we're great. Now all of a sudden that person gets stressed. So recruitment is a tremendous benefit to us. Our growth in our revenue has been exponential from over the past 7-8 years. And I can only look at the fact that our culture has gotten to a point where it's moving, and our customers and our clients are feeling what is going on, and they're feeling something that they haven't felt, and they want more of it. And it has allowed us to continue to grow. And then when we go into another region, like when we grew from the Philadelphia, New Jersey region to New York, it allowed us to say, we're not just coming in as a vendor who's just from a different area. We're going to come in and we're going to show you that we're going to come in with something totally different. And they doubt it. But once they start to see it, now you're coming into a market that with a different deliverable. So it's allowed us to expand our geographic and the work we do, because when you have good people say, we could do this and we can do that. And so it has allowed us to take risks which normally would be a big risk, but because we have the right people, the risks are reduced by 50% easy, because the person, if David's out there, his mindset, he's bought into what we're doing. I feel comfortable. I feel comfortable that we can get out there. So that helps us expand our revenue. And we've been profitable. I mean, that's the beauty of it all, is I have a saying here. I have actually a jar it's a bunch of gum, and it says, look, you can walk and chew gum. And it's called what do I call it? Standstill gum.
Mhm.
So they say, what do you mean? I said, well, if you put that gum in your mouth, can you walk? I said, yeah, I can walk. Well, you can do culture and be profitable. You
That's
can do
funny.
both.
So when you talk to, you're talking to, I think your point about expanding, I hadn't quite thought about it that way before, that it gives you a level of confidence in your own staff that they're going to be the way you want them to be when you expand. As you go and you talk to a prospective customer, and they're talking to you and 3 other contractors that they might want to do business with, and you're trying to explain why your culture, what makes you different in your culture and why that should matter to them, what do you say to them when you're explaining that to them?
The first one, so construction is a highly dangerous business.
Mm-hmm.
And safety is very important to our business. But safety can't be just policing. Safety has to be about believing. So we believe if we do a better job of connecting to our employees, having them each value each other as human beings, that they ultimately will be not just adhering to the rules, that they will be trying to be safer, which will be in the best interest of the customer, because no one wants something to happen on their project. On top of that, we believe we're going to give you employees from our company that are going to be different in the sense that they're not going to be a constant drain on your energy. They're going to create some positivity with you. They're going to feel like when there's problems that come up, they're going to not go, oh, woe is me. They're going to, through our training, they're going to learn that that's not the way we do things here. The EDA way is not that way. And you're going to feel that. Now, it's a hard pitch in the beginning. But what we have seen is repeat business happens so much better for us when they experience it. Once they feel it, they go, I want that again. Can you give me that again? And our job is, through training, is to grow that across our entire company. Now, remember, our company is 25 years old. So some people come in, have been only in here for a year. Some people have been here for 15 years. So there's a constant training mechanism that we have to do to keep people on the ball. This is hard still. I mean, that's why I like it. It's hard because it's a constant battle between, do I get the job done? Do I do it right? Do I, should I do quality? Should I do quantity? Should I make sure we're doing it the EDA way? I said, well, do them all. We got to figure out how to do them all.
Not one or the other.
Yes. So the process of doing that is difficult, but the customers, when you pitch that, they're not as interested in the way you do things, the way you make the sausage. They just want to see the sausage. But when you explain to them the way you're trying to build your people and how you're training them and how that can benefit them, if it benefits them, then then they see value in it. And that's why I started with safety. I said, well, look, we're safe. We're not as, but the way we do safety is we police it. But more importantly, we try to get down to the humanity of the people and say, look, this isn't about us policing it. This is about us trying to make sure everybody goes home at the end of the day. And nothing's worse for a customer when they have maybe an injury or something happens on a project. Yeah. And then quality, 99% of the time our workers are working, no one is watching them. So there's got to be a faith when they're putting that bolt in, that they're doing it with some care. And when they care about the company, because the company first, and that's what I say to everybody, the first thing the company has to do is you have to care for them first. Then you see reciprocation.
Yep.
But don't wait. You got to do it first, and you got to keep doing it. And then once they feel like they're at a company that they care about, they may make mistakes, but they won't do them without any, without it being a mistake.
Right. Yeah. So just going to switch directions a little bit on us here. So virtually one of the things that I've seen in virtually every company I've ever worked with is everybody has had the experience of having at least one person who isn't really a good cultural fit. And most of the time they're like a high producer or somebody that's in an important role that we're worried about how we'd live without them. And we struggle to finally get rid of that person. And when we do, it makes such a big difference everyone's got a story like that. So give me a story of somebody that, you don't have to give me their name, but somebody who you struggled with. Oh, I don't know if we can let go of this guy, or so my management team didn't want to let go of them, but we finally did. And what happened there?
First of all, that's where you're mature. I would say that I'm maturing, and I'm at the most over the past 3 years. I'd say I'm the most matured of that fear. So the entrepreneur who started this company still has that fear, even though I'm 25 years in, that you lose that high producer and you think, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? But every time it has happened, I have not regretted one time, not once, losing a person who just could not pick up the culture or couldn't do it. I mean, I don't want to speak too current because I don't want to
reveal who it is.
Down. Yes. But I will tell you that there's been times where I knew they weren't getting it and they didn't want to get it. And they felt like they were using their talent as their weapon. And it was a good one because they were very smart, very dedicated, very good at what they did, but they just they did not want to buy into culture. They believe that you come to work and then you go home and everything changes. And at EDA, I'm trying to develop a culture that is a 24-hour culture. You're the same person here, you're the same person at home. We believe if we build the right culture here, it's going to help your home life. And if you have the right home life, you'll have a better work life.
Yeah.
There is. So when you say, well, no, if I perform my job really well, it's okay. And they would constantly undermine the culture. And it really was a difficult decision. But I must tell you that it's so freeing because the real success of a company is not at the top or the bottom. It's the middle. And a healthy culture doesn't need the stars at the top who aren't living the culture or the person at the bottom. The reality of it is, and it's proven for us multiple times that once we move past that and we buy into the minimum transaction with the right culture, they always outperform the minimum transaction. And while your star may be able to give you a high transaction, they give you a low culture, and the low culture is a killer. It's a cancer when you have the high producer with low culture. Everybody's looking for that alpha who's that high producer. And if you allow that person to stay in, they erode all the work you've done. And we have 100% have allowed it. And I will be the first one to admit it. But we have grown and matured to know that, you know what? We have faith. It'll be fine. Yeah. We'll be okay.
It's in the workshops that I do for CEOs, I'll always ask people, all right, how many of you have ever, with talk about that issue, and I'll ask people, how many of you have ever fired one of those people? And everybody raises their hand. At some point, they've done that. And I'll always ask them two questions. I'll ask, so what did everybody else say when you finally did? And almost in unison, they'll say, thank God, we were wondering when you were going to do this. And then I ask them, what did you say to yourself afterwards? And almost in unison, they'll say, I should have done this a long time ago. And to your point, almost never do we lose the things we feared losing. The rest of the sales team picks up the slack. The rest, we find somebody who's a better engineer and it outperforms the person who we were so worried about losing. It happens all the time. It's the best way to show people you're not kidding about your culture.
And it is. You're David. That's exactly it. When we get challenged on whether this culture is real or not, the best way to prove it to them is to say, look, see that high performer? Everybody knows they're a high performer, but they're not living the culture. And if you don't live the culture, and now if they're working on trying to live the culture, we stay with them. But when they're working against the culture because they think they know better, that's when you prove to your staff. And look, sometimes sometimes in our business, sometimes people don't even see it, but leadership does. And we see it.
Yeah. And even though when you wonder about whether anybody else sees it, the very fact that when I ask that question, what did everybody else say? Almost always the people say, yeah, we were wondering. Because I would tell you most of the time, not always, they see more than you see. They're out in the field. They're seeing the work, and there's usually worse skeletons in the closet than you saw. The things you saw that caused you to say, we got to get rid of this guy or this woman. There was a lot worse stuff going on too, almost always.
100%.
Yeah.
I tell you a story real quick. We had a situation where there was drug use being used. And thankfully, we had a culture where one of the individuals who was on the project, who wasn't doing it, was able to confidentially contact me. And that is the kind. Now, that wasn't the highest performer. That was someone who cared about us.
Yeah.
And gave us something to really protect us. And it morphed into a program now where we're going to help people who have addiction. We're going to accept the fact that that's who we are. We're dealing with the human race, that people are going to fall and have illnesses. So your point is, but I've never lost a high performer person who wasn't good at the culture, because they didn't add anything other than the high performance of what they did. And I can replicate that with more people.
Yeah, ultimately.
Oh, I've seen it. I mean, it's a fact. And all the awards we get, when we get them, it's not because we promote for them. It's because our people really speak to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they feel it.
So as we come to the end of our conversation, I'm always curious about, you've talked a lot about your journey, and you didn't use that word, but I'll use that word, that this evolution from a guy who didn't know about culture to reading Good to Great and getting turned on, and then starting to research more, and then all the things you've learned along the way. What's the biggest piece of wisdom, if you were talking to the Ed DeAngelis who started the company in 1999, and you think back to that guy who was there, and think of the wisdom you've gained over these years, what would be the biggest piece of advice you would give that Ed DeAngelis in 1999?
I think the biggest piece I would give that person is, your success isn't about you. So it's about, how do you build your people, and what do you do to make them better? When I started my business, it was about me.
Interesting.
And it would be really, I would love to have gone back and said, look, I am a big part of it because I'm employee 1. So employee 2, I'm 50% of the whole organization. But if I can hone in on how to create that person, make that person better just from the jump, and get out of my own way, get out of my own head, that it's all about me, man, that would have been such a benefit. And I think I would have gotten to the journey of creating, as you said, we had a culture, but I would have liked to have been a lot more about them than about me. I would have actually changed the name of the company. Like, there's a lot of things that I was still about me. So my advice to that person would be, look at your people as human beings, make them better, help to make them better, because the reciprocalness of it will happen. You don't have to worry. You're scared and you're just afraid, and you want to control everything, and you think it's all about you. And at the end of the day, my success has nothing. That lasted for a minute. The success of EDA from that point on has been about the people, not me. I'm just steering the ship. But at the end of the day, they're rowing everything and they're doing the work. And our success is because of them, of the great people that have come in here, are still here, that have done all the great thinking and all the good work. So when I was in 99, I didn't think that way. I thought about Ed DeAngelis. And the power of building that is, and it's the journey, we called it the journey to greatness, is so much funner when it's not just about you. I mean, I'm going to tell you, David, that I'm 50, I'll be 57. I have no interest in retiring, because I get to enjoy the culture of people and watching it grow. And that's fun.
Yeah. That's awesome.
It's a great thing. And of course you got to make money, you got to take risks and things like that. But I've been able to run into all different types of people, and we're trying to create more diversity in our organization because I believe the strength of our organization is shared experiences, and some shared experiences are different than others. And our strength is getting as many experiences so we can fulfill. That's where I go back to what you asked me. If I could just keep thinking about our people and how do we get a different experience. So we have a lot of H-1B employees in here, and it's like, okay, how do we create what's their experience and how do we create something? Let's worry about them. And they'll produce. Human beings want to produce.
Yeah. Well, if I go back to in my first company, when I first started to build a great culture and learn about how to do that, this is going back in the 80s. I wasn't thinking about culture because culture wasn't popular back then. I was thinking about high performance and how do I get a group of people to perform in an extraordinary way and care deeply about what they're doing. And so I created a way to do that. In retrospect, afterwards, it was like, oh, I guess that was culture. But in the 80s, we didn't talk about culture.
No.
But I was doing all of those things that later I realized was culture. And so when I wrote my first book, it was a reflection on the things that I did. I didn't have a prescription I was following. I did a lot of stuff and later wrote about, well, I guess here's what I did. So the whole 8-step framework that I referred to earlier was a reflection of the 8 things that I had done. I didn't know them when I was doing them. But it just came from a basic understanding of, take care of people and help people to perform at the highest level. And a whole lot of good stuff happens if you do that. That seems pretty darn obvious to me.
It does seem obvious, but just like your 8 steps, every step is really hard. Meaning it's easily understandable, but you have to work at it and you got to keep at it. So you don't give yourself enough credit. The research and the time it took for you to develop it and then stick with it and then keep tweaking it. I say to people, look, this is easy to understand, but it's hard to implement. Yeah. And if you're committed to it, you can do it. And yes, there's people like yourself who've written books, and there's a lot of information out there that you can read, and then you will literally develop your own personal brand of culture that you would like it to be. I mean, that's the best part about it is it's truly, I believe, a reflection of who I want people to see us as. That's what makes it feel like, wow, that's important. And whether you call it culture, in years, I'm sure, David, you fought with this. Put a ping pong table in your office, a soda machine. Yeah. That's not culture.
No, has nothing to do with culture.
Right. Now, if you bring a ping pong table in and you create an event that creates the synergy of human beings coming together and you're creating that as a strategy, okay, that's good. But just like the words on the piece of paper, you got to build it.
Yeah. Well, Ed, you've obviously done a fantastic job at that. And I say, in all honesty, congratulations for having come from a place where you didn't know what this was all about and being determined to create something that's really special and are continuing to build that. And I think your comment there at the end about wanting to build a company that is a reflection of the things that are important to you, that's a pretty powerful place to be. And so congratulations on having created that, and really appreciate you sharing with me and with our audience, that journey. If people want to learn more about EDA and your journey, where would they go?
Yeah, if they go to our website, EDAContractors.com, I think you get a good feel of who we are and what we do. Just go onto our website, check in, see news articles, see all the connections of the things we do. You'll be able to get a good feel and the good energy of what kind of company we are.
That's great. Well, thank you again. It's great to have you on Culture Architects, Ed.
Thank you very much. It was a great conversation. I appreciate all the work you do in this place, because I think we need to speak more about businesses speaking about culture.
Absolutely. And that's it for today's episode of Culture Architects with Ed DeAngelis, founder and CEO of EDA Contractors. Folks, if you've been enjoying what we do on this show, make sure to subscribe on your preferred platform, and that way you'll get automatic updates whenever we release new episodes. If you have a minute, leave us a review as well, so that way more culture fans like you can discover the show. And lastly, if you want to learn more about building a high-performing culture in your team or organization, check us out at CultureWise.com. See you next time on Culture Architects.
This has been Culture Architects with David J. Friedman. Join us next time for more insights and wisdom from great leaders in all walks of life. To book David for your next event or to learn more about his writing, speaking, or consulting, go to davidjfriedman.com. Culture Architects with David J. Friedman is a production of CultureWise.